Hey, gang. Oh, using the swipe feature on OBS doesn't really matter when you've got an overlay covering your face. Hey there. Um, Issues with Biz Growth Collective. We started going live on that this week, and for past couple of times, I couldn't log in. It says that the password is incorrect. Yes, it is because I haven't changed it, and every time I try to do it, it doesn't let me in. So we will not be on Biz Growth Collective this week. And it's in super beta, unlike Chatter, which is about to go live with version 2.0. That's not working. And flowsend.ai, which we still don't have an agreement on. I'm kind of hoping Biz Growth Collective and everything that they offer for you. I got to put that on my to-do list to call him. Just because he'll want to know. John's going to want to know that it isn't working. At builda.space re. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm here. It's time to go. Let's do this. We might go longer than an hour again, and that's good training because probably sometime in February, maybe by the end of this month, every day is going to be at least 2 hours. We've talked with one of our new stations, WZQR, and it's going to be a condition of our renewal, which is happening right now with 99.1 WDJY, that we're either 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday, or not at all. Any new station that we're buying time on, ZQR is a community station that likes what we're doing, and so they have us on to fill their already available time. But others, and which is amazing because their website has 2,000 hits, or excuse me, 2 million hits a month. That's awesome. And speaking of websites, I'm just going to do this now because I keep thinking about it and wanting to do it. Build a Space is putting up at least it's faster now. How about that way? No. What if it doesn't have an SSL? Try that way. Nope. Yergs.com is still not up. And I know that they're working on it because John and I talked about that earlier this week. See what Mastiff.media has to offer, still the old one. So that's also not something really worth giving out. But those are going to be, and I estimated, they do it at their speed because they're doing it for me because we're partnering on a bunch of things. But I estimate that they'll have something up in a ready fashion by the end of next week, I think, based on what he told me that they're already further along on. So, yeah, we're now on WZQR, AM and FM in Pineland, Florida, on Pine Island, just west into the Gulf, just west of Naples. Also, we're trying to be on Biz Growth Collective. Can't get in right now. So I'll either try to change the password, see if that works, or figure something out. I'm still waiting to hear back from Romaine Patterson from TNR Studios. I have a reason to email her again besides scheduling our meeting. So I will reach out for that reason and then say, hey, still haven't scheduled with you. What's your schedule like? And then Biz Growth Collective, Chatter. We're trying to figure out how I can use my phone to be on Chatter the way I need to be. So I can use the desktop version at the same time. You've got to use them both, or you can't use a desktop version by itself. Something I hope they wrench on. Because I want to continue also being on Clubhouse, which is phone only. And for those with the video, you see this smaller microphone here on my mic, my studio mic, that runs down the same boom arm to a mount or to a holder for my phone at the bottom of the mount, where I plug the phone into that. It's a lavalier mic. You would plug this on your shirt. Instead, I plug it onto the shock mount, and it's fine. It's close enough. It's actually closer than what it would be if it was on my shirt. And I want to continue using Clubhouse. But I'm having a tough time using Clubhouse with this mic jack, and therefore not plugging in headphones, thereby muting this phone. And you hear the reverb from Chatter, even with it being muted. So Chatter's got some things to do. Clubhouse would be great if they came up with their own desktop version. Speaking of other desktop versions, you can find us on Discord. Go to the server Yerger group. And once you're there, it's self-explanatory. Go to the voice channels. Up the middle is there. You've got your own direct communication to me as I monitor the chat here in the studio. What else? Rainbow Radio, Yerg's Radio. Same as always. rainbowradio.gay, yergsradio.com. Also getting revamped. I've got a training session with Cirrus Systems later today. That's not Sirius as in like the satellite company. It's Cirrus spelled with a C, Cirrus. They help radio stations like mine and so many others in the industry simulcast, video, web host, podcast host, all kinds of things all in one. And until recently, I have to admit, I raised a little hell. The customer service was not too great. You have a concierge member of the customer service team assigned to you. Oh, I don't think I went live on Instagram. Yeah, got to do that. I hate having to do that manually. It's so stupid. But something you got to do. Is it not happening? What the hell? Oh, this is killing me. I did this. I provided the stream key. And now what's going to happen is it's not going to register. I would have to this is just so not worth it. Zuckerberg, you need to unscrew up Instagram. There's no reason it can't be just like Facebook. It's killing me. It's killing me. Every day I go through this. I'm going to go to one of my other Facebook pages instead. Oh, and they won't let me do that? Oh. Instagram is killing me. And speaking of social media, killing me, killing us. TikTok for TikTok. Clock's ticking on what could be left of one of the most popular social media applications, platforms, going. And going is exactly what it might do. Pam Bondi, the incoming attorney general, because, I mean, let's face it, nobody's going to hold her feet to a fire of that lying POS. I don't know if you've been keeping up with the hearings this week. That's something we'll talk about today. But when you're asked about whether or not you would allow the president to weaponize the Department of Justice, and you say that you will not answer hypotheticals, and your answer, as you say that you will not answer hypotheticals, just sounds so rehearsed. Like it's seriously pathetic. Like she's reading it. Like she doesn't even know to say that. It just sounds so rehearsed. And then when you're asked about the audio, which is available to you, of the then president on what was known to all parties as a recorded phone call, just saying, just find me 11,000 votes. And your response is you're not familiar with that footage? And you say that you're in the law enforcement community? There are only one of two options to explain that. One, you're lying. You know damn well what they're talking about. And you just don't have the balls to answer it. Or any other female reproductive parts necessary to give you the intestinal fortitude to do your job. You're either lying, or God forbid, if that was an honest answer, we just have one more candidate, one more nominee for a cabinet position they're not qualified for. That's it. That's the only options. Which one is it? Tell me which one it is. Because that's all there is. That is all there is. And that was, I just told you the crux of her testimony. That's what it was. And it was scenario, and some were hypotheticals. So if that's your thing, you're not going to answer hypotheticals, don't answer hypotheticals. But you also have to have the gray area and the cognitive skills to differentiate between a hypothetical. What if the president went to Russia and decided he wanted to govern the United States from Moscow? Well, some of us think that is a possibility, but realistically, anybody that actually believes that doesn't have the information to back that as a likelihood. So I could say where you wouldn't want to comment on something that, God, let's pray, something that's silly. But when he's on a recorded phone call that has now lasted the entire Biden administration, 4 years though it only was, and he's on a recorded phone call saying, find me 11,000 votes. He's on various sources, mostly social media. I think there were some interviews where he said, where he admitted, readily admitted, where he agreed, where he made it sound like it was a good idea that he's going to use the Justice Department as a means to target and combat his political enemies. And you're not familiar with that statement? And you want to be the Attorney General? Like, maybe do a little research leading up in the days leading up to your hearing, so you know what is happening in the world. Or more importantly, so you know what is happening in your jurisdiction. I remember when I was an ice hockey referee and I followed some of whom were my actual friends in the National Hockey League. And before a playoff game, the officials would get together, whether it was at like the hotel restaurant, at like the pregame meal, or somewhere, and they would sit and talk about the series during the course of the year, regular season play, things like that. And who doesn't like who, and who we might think might fight each other, et cetera, et cetera. I know about a conversation like that from, when did I read that in Hockey News? 30, 40 years ago. And you don't know that the president-elect, who's also a former president, who's also a convicted felon, who's also clearly one of the most controversial and outspoken and flat-out loudmouthed presidential candidates in our history. And clearly, if you don't believe that, if you think he's, justifiable in saying that he can stand on Fifth Avenue or wherever it was and shoot somebody and not lose any votes, if you think that's okay, then at least you can admit that he's the most outspoken presidential candidate in our history. And we can sit here and argue all day whether or not that's a good thing. And you don't know any of that? And you expect, this is why yesterday I said all parties involved need to tell their people, vote your conscience. Because clearly, let's be clear about that. That's not permitted. This is a numbers game. Nothing more. And I think my head is a little big on the screen here. We're going to try to. Yeah, it's better. This is a numbers game and nothing more. And on some of the issues, where in this case Republicans do sway away from party lines, fortunately, the leads they have in each house, they're still going to need every vote that they've got. Because all it takes is that small handful of courageous legislators willing to do their job, shocker, and vote against those party lines and vote their conscience. Didn't we talk about this? Didn't Mitt Romney tell us stories of his colleagues in the Senate, his Republican colleagues in the Senate, who admitted they did not have the courage to vote against Donald Trump? Now you've got an opportunity to, one, keep this knucklehead in check, and two, develop authority for your own body. In this case, the Senate. But no, you're still a pussy. That might not be good verbiage for radio, but what else do you want me to call it? Coward. We've used that plenty in describing governmental people that support this asshat. So let's save, if the Republicans are so hell-bent on cutting waste in the government, let's stop these confirmation hearings. Let's turn the lights off during those times of the day. We're not using it wisely. Mom, are you hearing this? You hearing me talking about using time wisely? Because remember in grade school, when various teachers would give me a minus for not doing that in class? Well, I've learned. I've been up since 6:30 this morning. This is the first time I sat down. Well, that's not true. I'm sitting here at my desk doing other prep work. But point being, I'm using my time wisely. I'm saving money. Why are they not doing it? It's a dog and pony show. It's like they're doing that to make us think that these people have a chance of not being confirmed. We have been following the news. And President-elect T. Rump's social media posts and have seen the outright threats of being primaried should you not toe the line. That is called weaponization of government. Pam, in case you need an example. Of course, your head's still stuck in the sand, so you're not hearing this. So that's one. It looks like Hegseth is going to give us a cabinet that has more liquor than an actual liquor cabinet, because he has come to Jesus and has tackled his previous shortcomings and has admitted where he's gone wrong in life, but he's denied them. He's denied treating women poorly when responding to his mom's email. His own mom had to step forward and say, my son's a POS. But he's had to deny that. But he also thanks his now, what are we on, third wife at not even 50 years old, who's helped him find Jesus and become a better man. Well, if you've denied everything your mom has accused you of, what's so bad about you? If you've denied the drunken binge parties at strip clubs and in the office, what's so bad if it never happened? This is just another example of the pathetic hypocrisy from MAGA. And again, I'm going to say this until the purple that represents part of my brand makes me blue in the face. And I don't mean liberal Democrat blue. I mean not getting air. And purple can represent that situation too, actually. If you've ever seen a floater, somebody who's drowned, and their body builds up with gas and it floats them to the surface, that's not pretty. That is a shade of purple I hope you never have to see. But I will say this till I'm blue in the face. There are plenty of things about me that are conservative. And I want to be clear as a political scientist by education and as someone who has studied this. Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, and anyone else who is either no longer a part of the Republican Party because they've been forced out one way or another, or still in the Republican Party, and God love them, speak up against these asshats. That seems to be my buzzword for today. They are not the rhinos. For those not familiar with that phrase or acronym, actually, RHINO, RINO, stands for Republicans in name only. In other words, they're members of the party, but they don't really have Republican ideals. Yes, they do. You maggots that have taken over are the real rhinos. And I can't stress that enough. That the rest of the country, I think, is actually starting to see it. At least with Biden, the price of gas at over $3 a gallon was stable. In like here in Florida, mid to high teens to low 20s. At the widest range for consistency and for most of the longer periods of time. Maybe it got up higher, maybe it got down lower, but that was rare and short-lived. Speaking of short-lived, anytime this gets down to close to $3 around here, and in some cases even lower, fill up your tank and gas cans, because literally tomorrow you'll see it 15 cents at least or more higher. We did not have that under Biden. While, by the way, for those who are all happy that we're going to open the pipeline and we're going to start drilling, no president in history, including Trump, drilled domestically more than Joe Biden. None. So, tangent after tangent after tangent. Got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the FCC doing some preventive measures for those of us in the media, knowing who's coming in, whatever lawfare and weaponization they want to do with the First Amendment will be made tougher because of the actions of the outgoing FCC chair. 99.1 WDJY, America One Radio, WZQR, Rainbow Radio, Yerg's Radio, and the rest of the Mastiff Media Network with us or off for today. You're going up the middle, and we'll be back right after this. Hey, gang, it's Yerg's. What are you doing right now? What are you doing? Are you with a group, some agency? Do you got your own business? Are you reaching them? We do. You get emails from me, and we get the help from Constant Contact. Go to my Facebook page, Ross Yerger. Hit the link for Constant Contact. Oh, we're back. Well, let's go to another one real quick. Hey, what's in your wallet? Well, I'll tell you what's in mine, and it should be in yours. Capital One. My credit card with Capital One has $0 fraud liability for any unauthorized use. 0. Flexible due dates. Look in your wallet. See if it's there. Or go to my Facebook page and click on the affiliate link. You get checked for pre-approval. You can apply for the card and enjoy. Nice. So I'm checking. We had an issue earlier this week with DJY. We missed 2 shows, and I didn't even know it. So I'm going back to, I used that phone to actually broadcast on 2 of them. But I'm also going back to using it to check to make sure we're actually on the air. So the FCC, I got to share this so I can show this to you. Let's do that. It's that one. I do usually put this up first. Sorry, I didn't do it today. That's this tab over here. Outgoing FCC chair. This is according to CNN. Outgoing FCC chair rejects the high-profile TV petitions as attempt to weaponize the government. We just talked about that all morning. Oh, scan it in here. There we go. This happening in New York, the outgoing Democratic chair of the Federal Communications Commission is taking bold action on the way out the door, rejecting what she described as 4 efforts to weaponize the government's TV licensing authority for political purposes. Activists on both the right and the left may be disappointed. But Chair Jessica Rose, wow. I'm gotta break this one down. It's a good one. FCC Chair Jessica Rosenworcel. I'll put the link to this, of course, in show notes, but also spell it for you right now. Yeah, check someone else here too. Okay, but also spell it for you right now. It's Rosen is first, Rosen, Worcel. Chair Jessica, as we'll call her today, said the agency needs to, quote, take a stand on behalf of the First Amendment. Never going to complain about that. So on Thursday, according to a statement obtained by our source here, which is CNN, she is dismissing all of the pending petitions. Wow. There's a word. There's a phrase. Dismissing all of the pending petitions and complaints before the FCC that she asserted seek to curtail freedom of the press. One of the petitions targeted a Fox-owned TV station in an attempt to hold the Murdochs accountable for Fox News Channel's falsehoods. Well, they weren't kidding, were they? The other 3 efforts were pro-Trump in nature and related to the recent presidential campaign. I saw it in this article. I don't know where, but that Fox TV station is actually Philadelphia. She wrote that the facts and legal circumstances in each of these cases are different. But what they share is that they seek to weaponize the licensing authority of the FCC in a way that is fundamentally at odds with the First Amendment. To do so would set a dangerous precedent. That is why we reject it here. She's not just tidying up before her term ends on January 20th. She's trying to convince others about the value of a clean house. She is clearly concerned that President-elect Donald Trump might use the agency that oversees U.S. telecommunications to punish media outlets he doesn't like, which he said he'll do. Pam Bondi, did you know that? Yes, you did. During the presidential campaign, Trump called for every major American TV news network to be punished for one reason or another, according to CNN, review of his speeches and social media posts. I said that earlier. On at least 25 occasions, Trump has said certain licenses should be revoked, almost always in reaction to interview questions he disliked or programming he detested. Is that what we might call weaponization? The FCC, which grants 8-year license terms for TV and radio stations and hasn't denied any license renewals in decades, has historically prided itself on its independence. But Trump's pick for FCC chair, get ready, Commissioner Brendan Carr, has echoed, in more polite terms, Trump's grievances with media outlets and spoken sympathetically about some of the pending complaints against station owners. The complaints could go ahead and refile once Carr takes charge next week. But the current chair is rejecting their bids to send a broader message. By doing so, quote, we draw a bright line at a moment when clarity about government interference with the free press is needed more than ever, unquote. Well, picking back up, the action we take makes clear two things. First, the FCC should not be the president's speech police. Second, the FCC should not be journalism's censor-in-chief. So I guess what she's saying is that perhaps Fox News did lie, which we all know was the case. But it's not their job to police that. I guess that's a civil thing. Well, okay. She's spoken out against Trump's license threats in the past, but this mass dismissal is a weightier statement, putting the Biden-era FCC on the record about the role of government vis-a-vis media regulation before the second Trump era begins. Industry observers have been wondering what she and the FCC's other Democratic commissioners might do about the long gestating petition to revoke the license for Fox's local station in Philadelphia, there you go, since its parent company also owns the anti-Democrat cable channel Fox News. Former Fox broadcasting executive Preston Patton and other activists argued that Rupert and Lakeland Murdoch, the father and son who control the Fox Corporation, should be held accountable for Fox's promotion of Trump's lies about the 2020 election. Okay, now let's recap something there. Preston Patton is a former Fox broadcasting executive. He is a boss at one of the likely defendants. Rupert lacks the character required to hold broadcast licenses, Patton told the CNN. The FCC is denying his petition because the so-called character assessment is at odds with the First Amendment and because the station at issue hasn't clearly failed to comply with agency rules. Okay, you know what? I get that. They're just broadcasting something else. And who are they to say what is accurate and not accurate when they're only in Philadelphia? Okay, I can take that. But in the interest of time, we only got 15 minutes left, and we're still in the first story because of my earlier rant. You can message me because Yergs.com is where these are usually at, and that's not up right now. Message me and I'll leave this up. News@Yergs.com. The email at Yergs.com works fine. Message me there. News, NEWZ, at Yergs, YERGZ.com. And I'll send you the show notes, which will have this article. And up next is TikTok. I'm going to just skim through a bunch of things because I got that's the Google search for today's news. So they were expecting to rule on the ban yesterday and did not. That does not mean that it's off the table. It just means that they did not rule yesterday. That's all. Let's take a look at that one. That's in Forbes. Forbes, I found to usually be more right-wing, especially some of their social media. The fate of TikTok's U.S. operations is still in doubt after the Supreme Court did not issue an opinion on the federal law banning it Wednesday, as had been anticipated, leaving the case up in the air days before the ban is scheduled to take effect, which I think is Sunday. Though justices signaled during oral arguments on Friday, they may uphold the policy. The Supreme Court heard oral arguments Friday over whether the federal law, which requires TikTok to separate from the parent company ByteDance or else be banned, is a violation of the First Amendment. It's unclear whether the court will rule in this case. The Supreme Court issued opinions in other cases Wednesday, but did not rule on the TikTok case, as many had expected it would. And there are no other dates yet scheduled for the court to release opinions. Ooh, that could suck. The law is now scheduled to take effect on Sunday. I was right about that, Sunday, unless the Supreme Court rules otherwise, as the court previously declined to pause the law from taking effect while it considers the case. TikTok and content creators on the app argued the ban violates their First Amendment rights by cutting off all speech on the platform, while the federal government argued the ban is necessary for national security, given ByteDance's Chinese ownership. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Justices on both sides of the aisle appeared skeptical of TikTok's arguments on Friday, with Justices Elena Kagan and Amy Coney Barrett questioning how TikTok's First Amendment rights are implicated when the law is specifically targeting ByteDance, a foreign-owned company, and its algorithm. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson suggested TikTok was wrong, that the case violates its First Amendment rights, and said she thought the case was more about TikTok's wanting to associate with ByteDance than its free speech silence. Chief Justice, this is not looking good for TikTok, in case you're not tracking this. Chief Justice John Roberts said the federal law was not a burden on TikTok and its users expressed at all, arguing Congress was fine with user speech on the app, but just not a foreign adversary getting information about the app's users. So I have a friend, my buddy Scotty from back in DC, posted an interesting point about this. No one is being forced to be on TikTok. So whatever information we, because I'm broadcasting to there right now, give TikTok in order to be on their platform, we agree to give it, just like we do any other platform. So what does it matter who owns it? Our name and information and whatever else is out there somewhere anyway. Justice Samuel Alito asked TikTok's creator's attorney about whether his clients would actually be harmed if TikTok went away, or if they could just go to a different platform, questioning whether their attachment to TikTok was akin to somebody's attachment to an old article of clothing. that could be replaced, or if ByteDance had truly created a magical algorithm that no other tech company would possibly create. Well, that's not the issue of how they would be harmed. Some of us are paying for that ability to use, and others are advertising on it, which makes some of us receiving funds for helping to expose those advertising. So, yeah, we will absolutely be harmed. Justice Brett Kavanaugh brought up past examples of the U.S. blocking broadcasting companies from having ties to foreign governments, and brought up the government's concerns about TikTok collecting data on U.S. users, which he said seems to be a huge concern for the future of the country. Again, we've given it. It's not like they're monitoring my schedule as to when I go to the grocery store and when spies can ransack my house. If the TikTok ban takes effect, quote, "At least I understand it. We go dark. Essentially, the platform shuts down." TikTok's lawyer, Noel Francisco, told the court Friday about the impact of the federal law. It's essentially going to stop operating. I think that's the consequence of this law. So I guess when I go live to talk about the inauguration on Monday, we'll know more. And I guess we kind of already talked about some of the Trump cabinet. So let's refresh this search and see what is the most recent. Well, CNN, back to them, says that TikTok will be banned without a savior. Well, we talked about that. Here are alternate apps users are going to. Well, that's great. But if I'm moving to a new app, like I had to do after being kicked off LinkedIn because of telling the truth, and being squashed on Twitter because of telling the truth and not being pro Donald, I'm developing followings on Blue Sky. And I got to look. I can't even think of them because they're that new. Chatter being another. Oddly enough, Truth Social hasn't kicked me off yet. Threads. Problem with that, it's another one that's opened by Meta or operated by Meta, like Facebook and Instagram. Facebook has become the garbage can of social media. So, the mail's here. So, yeah, I mean, that's where we're at. Three hours ago, the Biden administration was looking for ways to keep TikTok going. This according to NBC. President Joe Biden's administration is considering ways to keep TikTok available in the United States if a ban that's scheduled to go into effect Sunday proceeds, according to three people familiar with the discussions. Americans shouldn't expect to see TikTok suddenly banned on Sunday, an administration official said, adding that officials are exploring options for how to implement the law so TikTok does not go dark Sunday. Deputy White House Chief of Staff Bruce Reed has been a point person on the issue and has received many calls from people urging the president not to let the ban go into effect, according to two people familiar with the matter. If the administration moves forward with any such plan, it would mean the popular apps going down would not define his last full day in office, and it would defer the issue to Donald Trump. who will be inaugurated Monday. Mike Waltz, Trump's incoming national security advisor, told Fox News on Wednesday that Trump is ready to intervene to preserve access to the Chinese-owned video app in the American marketplace. And Pam Bondi, woohoo, sleepyhead, his pick for attorney general, refused to commit to enforcing the ban when she was asked about it at her Senate confirmation hearing Wednesday. The moves represent parallel efforts by the rival presidents to execute an end run around Congress and the Supreme Court, which is teed up to rule on the ban at any time. We covered that. One official said that we are not considering deferring enforcement. Statutorily, we don't believe we have the authority to do that. Now you want to follow the law? My comments before we go, this is something I wanted to get to. We've seen the MAGA movement, especially from the right, but especially the MAGAs, not being okay with spending money overseas, namely the war in Ukraine. Forget about our role globally about maintaining independence and democracy. We want to keep that money at home. Now we've got China moving globally, buying up certain assets and resources, and getting strategic locations like supposedly the Panama Canal. What if we started at home like you want to do, maggots? And instead of letting China purchase property right by military installations that Americans can't even get that close to, you want to seize property? Greenland, Canada, Mexico, Panama Canal. Why don't we do that? I think we should do that. But let's test it here at home and seize and nationalize that Chinese property purchased all over the country at literally every sensitive military base we've got that regular people like us don't even know exist, but China does? And you're worried about TikTok? True. Maybe it's venues, platforms like TikTok that are the problem. Maybe that's how they gained access to the information on where to buy premium land. But I first heard about TikTok when Anthony Melchiori on the podcast, I'm blanking on the name of it, but it's his hospitality podcast that he does with Glenn. I think it's daily, but the big one I think I used to listen to was on Fridays. But he told about this new app, which then, and I remember sitting on Sunset Plaza Drive where I lived, almost all the way up the mountain, that's now probably on fire, when I rented a room in my realtor's house because I got kicked out of the first place because of the lying realtor that my landlord had. I'm sitting there in my G-Ride listening to the podcast. No Vacancy was the name of the podcast. And I'm sorry, Glenn, I'm blanking on your last name right now. But Anthony and Glenn, Anthony talked about TikTok as a new platform. Well, I was in LA from 2019 to 2021. And it was March of 2019, after only 2 months, that I moved out of my condo because I wasn't allowed to have dogs, and I had dogs, and I didn't have 2 parking spots, and I had 2 cars, and into my realtor's house for a year. before finding my new place. So it was in March 2019 to the end of February 2020, in that window, when I would have heard about this new app, TikTok. Now we're in 2025. You think in only that span of stealing user information is when they found out about military installations to buy property at for pieces of property they've owned before TikTok was a thing? So I think we just figured out the problem might not be TikTok. 99.1 WDJY, America One Radio. We're going to be losing you, and WZQR as well. Come back tomorrow for Friday Fights when Blake and Matt. Yeah, wow. Blake and Matt will be joining for Friday Fights. We'll be talking about the cabinet. We'll be talking about TikTok and so many other things. 2-hour show. Join us then. Friday, 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific. See you again. For those leaving, I will be right back. Or for those not leaving, I'll be right back right after this. Why is there we go. All right, everybody. We'll see you in a little bit. Noon. We're gonna finish some of this up a little before we. Let me see if I can do it over here. There we go. 12 noon. We're gonna finish some of this up a little bit before we get out of here. So yeah, Donald, you want to buy Greenland because you've got some strategic reason to have it. You want to make Canada the 51st state. Okay. Probably talked to, maybe he did. I don't remember. Probably talked about doing the same with Mexico. Certainly has with Panama, or at least the canal. Let's see how it goes. Let's try it here where we can do it. We got a lot more control. And God knows, Donald, you love control. Nationalize the Chinese-owned property around all the already sensitive military bases where they own property and see how that holds up in court. Test your theory that national security comes before the rights of others, to include foreign entities. And do something positive for the country in the process. Even if only temporary. Let's say you lose that argument. Even if only temporary, you will have been able to evict spies. Let's call them what they are. Evict spies. Take over the property. Perhaps learn what they've got there if you do it fast and swift enough. And then if the courts say you got to let them back in, fine. Let them start over. Maybe the courts won't say that you have to let everything there. You take it with you. And then at least you'll know that when you try the same thing on the international stage, how much of an ass it's going to make you look like. Or not. So TikTok for TikTok. Clock's counting. And apparently Sunday is the day. What I've heard so far, and we can go back to that, see if there's any stories regarding it. Let's see. Will TikTok be banned with the no? Biden, Supreme Court didn't rule on TikTok. It was the Forbes article we looked at. China way sale of TikTok to TikTok US to Musk as a possible option. Shocker. I don't get the point of telling people like CNN is doing there. That here are the other apps people are using instead. So what? You have to still develop a following on those apps. You can't just say, hey, everybody, follow me over here. They got to actually want to go over there. And if some of those people are on the international level, i.e., countries not banning TikTok, they'll find somebody else just like you. But one of the things I heard, and I don't have a source for this, so don't take this as value yet until I look into it for tomorrow's show, and definitely something we'll talk about on Monday in addition to the inauguration, is that those of us with TikTok will not be losing it. And I guess that means we'll be continuing, in my case, to broadcast on it 5 days a week, but also to use the application, to be on the platform. But what will be happening is that there will be no new downloads of the app. And as such, no, I'm hearing the other show. And as such, no additional new users on the app. So just looking at the headlines here again, Reuters is reporting that TikTok's obviously making the preparations to shut down on Sunday. Like I said, to what I've heard a few times so far, it's not a total shutdown, but we'll find out Sunday. The Independent is reporting that Trump and Mr. Beast, oh God, I just don't like the guy. Mr. Beast uses other people and their stupidity and their desire to have a 15-minute time frame of fame that they do stupid, and I can say it now, stupid shit on his channel. And he spends tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars to create game sets that, people do stupid stuff like stay in a glass room for the longest for whatever that was, like $1 million or some shit. He could do so much, but I get when the application was new and he did things like that, and that got him his following. But look at Howard Stern. He did all kinds of crazy shit when he was on terrestrial radio. He evolved into something that fit his new platform. And now he is probably some of the most intelligent conversations. Joe Rogan is a condescending dick. Howard Stern brings you intelligent conversation. I learned so much about President Joe Biden by watching that interview. Anyway, so Trump and Mr. Beast are coming to the rescue. Where else did I see here? Elon Musk or somebody. Yeah, there we go. Bloomberg in the bottom right reported 2 days ago that China weighs the sale of TikTok to U.S. or the sale of TikTok U.S., not the rest of the application, just that part, to Musk as a possible option. Good. So there's another one that he can run into the ground. So that's TikTok. There it is. We talked about that. We talked about, is that another FCC or is that another TikTok one? That's more on the TikTok ban. That's just the NBC story. That's him trying to keep it going. Yeah, lastly, we talked about Bondi, but I think the Treasury Secretary is today. Let's refresh this, see where we're at. Trump cabinet update. Treasury and EPA are today, according to the Washington Post. See what else they got. And some other Trump. So here's the thing that you need to realize about confirmation hearings. There's no one committee from the Senate that does the hearing. So, for example, Hegseth was interviewed by the Defense Department Appropriations Committee, a committee directly relevant in overseeing that cabinet position or a department. So that's why there are multiple hearings happening this week, because there's multiple locations, multiple committees, et cetera, et cetera. Then the entire Senate, all 100 senators, will vote on, let's call it what it is. They'll vote down party lines, and that'll be it. But yeah, I mean, I've seen smarter cabinets at IKEA and full liquor cabinets with less alcohol. I mean, I'm no longer surprised, because for those of you that still support Trump on any level, which should be zero at this point, but again, I'm no longer surprised, because if January 6th didn't do it for you, like, how low do we have to go as a country, as a society? Oh, time for lunch. As a country, as a society, as an anything, to say this guy's no good. To say that at a minimum, his failure to do anything through his social media, like he used to start it, like he eventually used to pretend to try to stop it, just makes him a poor leader, and especially poor candidate to be president of the United States ever again. But no, you think Kamala Harris is the lesser, or is the bigger of two evils? Kamala Harris won't be here in 4 years. When she gets primaried, where the Republicans come back with a real candidate. But at least in 4 years, we'll still be able to vote again. So, yeah, I have meetings all afternoon today, so I can't be long-winded. Yeah, 1 o'clock, I got a training session. It's not another 50 minutes, but I got to get these dogs fed and get some prep together for tomorrow, and stuff that I'm doing over the weekend in prep for Monday. Let's talk about that before we all go. Monday is the inauguration. For those of you wanting to do any banking or mail, it's a federal holiday. But let's see. 2025 Trump inauguration. Why does that not? Yeah, but I don't want. Oh, that's right. It's at noon. Oh, yay. I know what I'll be doing in our second hour, Jane. I don't care about people performing at the president's inauguration. Here's Reuters. Trump will take the oath of office likely administered by U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts. That's not a requirement, by the way. Trump will then deliver his inaugural address. In interviews, he has said he intends to be uplifting and unifying. I will believe that when I see it. That would mark a departure from his first speech in 2017, which detailed a broken country he described as American carnage. Meanwhile, he inherited one of the best economies we've ever had, and he squandered it. Inherited one of the best reputations we've ever had, and he squandered it. The outgoing president, Democrat Joe Biden, has said he plans to attend the ceremony and witness the transfer of power, a courtesy Trump did not afford him 4 years earlier when he was forced out of the White House, to be clear. The Joint Congressional Committee that administers the swearing-in ceremony on Capitol grounds says it will be releasing more than 220,000 tickets for the event. The National Park Service, which oversees the National Mall, where unticketed members of the public gather to watch the ceremony, has issued a permit to Trump's inaugural committee for an estimated crowd of 250,000 people. Country music star Carrie Underwood shot her career in the foot because she's expected to perform at the ceremony. After a lunch with congressional leaders at the Capitol, Trump will proceed down Pennsylvania Avenue in a motorcade to the White House, accompanied by a procession of military regiments, school marching bands, floats, and citizens groups. The new president and his guests will then observe the rest of the parade from a reviewing stand. Two sources familiar with the planning said Trump is preparing to flood a flood of executive orders and directives that could total more than 100 for day one and beyond. He's expected to sign orders that give immigration officers more latitude for arrest migrants with no criminal records, send more troops to the U.S.-Mexico border, and restart construction on the border wall. The orders will include a drive to increase energy production, which is already at its highest, and follow through on Trump's oft-stated campaign vow, drill, baby, drill, which we're already doing. Trump also is likely to issue the first wave of pardons for defendants convicted by the federal government for their participation in the January 6th, 2020 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Yep, go ahead. Shoot yourself in the foot one more time. There are at least 18 inaugural galas held throughout Washington over the weekend and Monday, 3 of which are considered official and which Trump is expected to attend. On Sunday, on the eve of the inauguration, Trump is set as well to hold a campaign-style Make America Great Again victory rally at an arena in downtown Washington. Likely, I knew it as the Verizon Center. I'm sure it's changed by now. Such an event likely will help spur thousands of Trump supporters to pack the city for the inaugural festivities. It will be Trump's first rally in the District of Columbia since January 6th, 2021. Dun, dun, dun. On Monday, the Zuckmeister will co-host a reception there for billionaire Republican donors, along with casino magnate Miriam Adelson and Houston Rockets owner Tillman Fertitta, Trump's pick for ambassador to Italy. That's the first time I'm hearing that one. Oil and gas tycoon Harold Hamm, a top Trump donor, and Tillman Fertitta, I know, is a conservative and Trump donor, will host an inauguration watch party on Monday on the roof of the historic Hay Adams Hotel near the White House. It's right up the north end of Lafayette Park. Okay, so the rest is cost I don't care about because it's not coming from me. So, yeah, we'll be covering that at noon, clearly. And then we'll see what we do if I stay live after that or throughout the day. I might like go live when it's necessary, but I'm not going to sit here for hours covering that douche. Speaking of not sitting here for hours, that's going to be it, gang. We're back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific, 4 p.m. local time in London, where we'll be on the UG.media, channel XL. Of course, we'll be back on 99.1 and America One Radio and WZQR. You can go to WZQR.FM, by the way, and listen to us on that channel. They have 7 on their website. just to be clear. And we are on WZQR Talks. Probably pretty self-explanatory, but it is the seventh one in the line of stations. So Limitless Caricature wants to offer cheap viewers on streamboo.com. Remove the space. Yes, I know, because you're not supposed to be putting that, and nobody really cares because they're not real viewers. But thanks. Not. All right. We'll see you again tomorrow for Friday Fights. Blake and Matt will be joining, and we'll be talking about Monday for sure, as well as TikTok and cabinet updates. Thanks for joining, everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for running with the big dogs up the middle. We'll see you tomorrow.